couple times. It's actually my husband's name.
Hey guys, my name is Kim Guillory, and this is Monique. We have a special show for you today. We get all of this out of the way. We're going to be talking about integrative life coaching and the integrative program, which is a unique approach to gaining power and control of your life. Monique is my guest. She is an integrative life coach, licensed massage therapist, and she specializes in pain management and recovery. Hi, Monique.
Hi, Kim.
Tell us a little something. What you got going on?
Oh, man. What do I have going on? Um, just really putting into practice the tools, the tools that we've learned, the things that we have been able to implement and integrate. And it's pretty amazing. It's pretty phenomenal right now, especially with everything going on and the little change of pace that we have in life right now. So, um, super grateful just to have that understanding and knowledge to um, respond from a place of clarity and confidence versus chaos and confusion right now, right? Like that's what I'm jamming out with right now. It feels really good.
So, and that was probably my first question for you is, because I know you are a practicing massage therapist, but you're also a life coach and you do online work. So you actually have the technique to where they can receive whether you're working hands on or virtually. And I think
Yes.
that's what's so beautiful about this process is even for other massage therapists and body workers and Reiki masters and all of this online stuff, these opportunities that we have is that your clients actually can still receive your help even with
Yeah.
all of this going on. And so it's such a great thing that they're already signed up and they're already like getting the benefits and that you didn't have to stop. Did you see that? Like for the ones that you were seeing in person, hands on, how all of that came to a dead stop and it was like, thank God we have an option.
It was a really super interesting experience. So yeah, I do a lot of my work already online with clients, because I have clients all over the country, and so they were already able to receive, the virtual way of healing, which was kind of cool. But I had a pretty big group of clients that I was doing here on my tables with cranio sessions and, when we first got told we had to be shut down, it was kind of a little nerve-wracking to them. And I had a couple of them even say, like, I don't know about this. I don't know. I don't really understand what you're talking about. Like they couldn't wrap their head around it. And I said, just trust me. Trust me, we don't want to lose momentum. We're going uphill, like we're in this great space and we don't want to stop now. And so I'm super fortunate. I have some amazing clients and they put their trust in me. And we've been doing the virtual stuff the last couple weeks. And we have made some substantial movements through their life. Like some
Nice.
really cool things have happened on this computer screen in the last couple weeks. And just mind blowing, Kim. Just super. I can't say enough about it.
Yeah. I'm going to take us back a little bit. This is kind of my thing is like whenever, you do these interviews and they come on, it's kind of cheesy, like, well, thank you. And thank you for having me. And I'm like, it's so weird. I just wanted to avoid all that and kind of jump into a topic. But I also want to have the opportunity just to talk about our experience together. Monique and I went to massage therapy school together. So we had a pretty extensive relationship
Hmm.
prior to this work. And I remember her specifically reaching out when she saw what I was doing online and she's like kind of started questioning and pulling it in. And I want to just kind of share that before and after with the audience. So Monique is located in Colorado. She's actually from Lake Charles, Louisiana. That is where we met and started our relationship. And so it was pretty interesting that all of the coaching and the transformation work that you received, none of it was in person and how
Mm-mm.
completely transform your life, your business, your relationships, your family, everything like in such a short amount of time. Like do you even recognize yourself in your life?
Oh man, it it's very strange. It's very surreal. You know, I I went from just a couple years ago of being in this super dark place. I mean, um, it, it it's so unreal to me,
Do you
that
mind
that
going there?
transformation. Yeah,
Do you
yeah.
mind like just giving the audience
Oh, yeah,
just a little idea of what that looks like,
man.
just so that they can relate? For some of them, they'll need to hear this.
Yeah. So, there was a childhood with patchwork family. So, neglect comes into play. Not that my parents weren't great and loving, but, you know, things get overlooked. And we were never taught to process emotions or to feel things. And so, um, it's just really strange the things that we were raised around that we didn't really even know weren't going to be beneficial for us, right? Like our parents loved us and all that stuff, but we weren't really taught a whole lot of things. And then so fast forward several years, I went through really traumatizing relationships, really a really rough divorce. Dabbled in addiction for a while and got kind of caught up in a few different things that were not great. And over the years, was diagnosed with ADD, OCD, mental instability, nerve medicine, pain pills. Um, I had chronic migraines, carpal tunnel syndrome, just huge list of diagnoses, just crazy things, and this is all in my late teens, early 20s into my 30s, and so I was told things like my body was going to break down and that I wouldn't have all these genetic issues and like all this stuff, would be going on in my life forever. And so I just took it as truth. I just believed them when they said I need to wear an ankle brace every time I teach ballet, that I need to sleep in braces for carpal tunnel syndrome, and have the shots every month. And I just believed them when they said that I was crazy and I should take the nerve pills, and they told me they were treating all my symptoms, but they
Right.
never knew what was actually going on. I paid therapists and counselors. Oh my God. I told them the most crazy things and they just looked at me and were like, mm-hmm. And so it's like all of these years, all of this stuff and all of these meds and surgeries and diagnosis, and then I get to a place and I'm just like, what is going on? Like before I moved to Colorado, I took 9 prescription bottles to the sheriff department in a Ziploc bag. And they looked at me like I was insane. And I said, I don't want these. I don't want the Percocet. I don't want the Vicodin. I don't want the lorazepam. I don't want the Ambien. I don't want any of this stuff anymore. And they just kind of kept looking at me. They didn't really understand, but I said, I don't want it. I'm taking myself off all these meds that they told me would alter my body, that could possibly throw me into withdrawals. Nothing. I had zero effect from getting off of those drugs other than I got back to my mental stability. I remember doing some grounding exercises with you one day in massage school, and I was in a really deep place. My daughter was in a lot of trouble, and that mother intuition was kicking in. And you looked at me, you said, "What is wrong with you?" And I just remember sitting there and going, I can't even talk. I couldn't even say the words because I knew that I would just break down and just be a hot mess. And we did a little grounding exercise, and that was one of the first times I remember coming into presence and being
Oh,
truly
interesting.
grounded. And it was just this very strange feeling that I never remember ever having before in my entire life. And I go back to that moment, and it was just like there was just this little light bulb that came on, and it was like all that stuff does not have to affect your internal environment.
Nice. What, so can you take us there? So I have the chills just you saying it, and I'm not even remembering the moment, but I'm hearing
Okay.
what you're saying and feeling what you're saying with like when you say I've never experienced that before, can you
Yeah.
describe? Because I know my first time I felt it, so I'd like to hear yours.
So, for those of you that don't know, I have a daughter that's in recovery, and she was probably 18 or 19 at the time. She was super young, and there was just a lot of stuff going on. We were looking at treatment facilities, what was going to happen, things like that. And I remember coming into class, and my whole body was shaking. My
Mm,
nervous system was just on fire, and even when I talk about it now, I can still feel it in my
Right.
body because that cellular memory is there, right? And it was such a painful experience. And I remember you and a couple of the other girls just being like, "Are you okay? Like you don't look okay." And looking back now, like I probably wasn't okay. I was probably
It
like
probably
white
wasn't.
and looking crazy, but I felt this vibration in my body, like this constant shaking. And you said, lay on this table. And it was dark. It was around lunch. We had gone to get a coffee for Starbucks or something and come back. And I laid on the table and you did a little bit of cranio. You just cradled under, that still point. And we went through I am here now for like
Mm.
10 minutes. You set a timer and you just kept saying, I am here now. I am here now. And I remember just tears pouring. But there was such this, I still get choked up thinking about it. There was such this ease in my body.
Mm.
And it was
So
it
good.
was so undescribable. It was nothing that I've ever felt before. And it was like I said, like in that moment, I understood that I did not have to worry about everything else. That I didn't have to be concerned with everybody else's stuff. I didn't have to worry about what they thought about my choices. Right. And I understood that her path is her path and she's going to do what she wants to do. And just coming into grounding and feeling that. And I went outside and I took my shoes off and I put my feet in the grass and I
Mm.
dug all in the dirt. And I remember just standing there like this and just like, oh man, just like get centered, get grounded.
Yeah, like
And
celebrating being in your body, right? Were
it
you
was
had you ever been in your body before?
no,
That's so good. Like, I really want to
no.
celebrate this moment. I remember the moment that I felt that way. I was at a yoga retreat, and I remember I wrote home. And I wept and wept because it was the first time I had ever come home into my own body. I didn't understand then that it really was not safe to be in here where there were emotions that were so scary that I couldn't stay. And I think very similar to yours is being on all of the medications, that the medication was actually keeping me from I couldn't even tap into my own emotion, right? It had numbed out my actual survival mechanism, which was
Mhm.
tapping into my knowing, tapping into my emotion. And I remember telling my doctor this. It was his wife actually, like, what's the word I want to say? Completed suicide. They say there's a new way to say this, but
Okay.
and I remember in the front of the funeral home, he asked me, how did I get past all of that? Because he had been my doctor through the whole way, and how was I not in that position? And I was like, when I was taking all of that medication, it's like I didn't have access to myself. It's almost as if y'all were saying, like, your emotions are dangerous or your feelings are dangerous. So we need to cut them off. We need to get rid of them. And he said, that's exactly what we did. Like, that is how they deal with the nervous system or deal with these emotions, or like, it's basically more of a disconnect where we actually the medicine that we're looking for is the reconnect. It's the coming home. It's not the leaving, and like evacuating our own presence, taking that consciousness out of the body because we can't handle, because of some kind of traumatic experience that we have had here in the past, and the memories are still here. And so every time a little event, like you're saying with your daughter, or like something else happened, it would trigger all of that to come up. And we for sure couldn't be in it when we're in the trauma, much less
No.
in the trigger where it doesn't make sense, right? When you were in the trauma, it made sense. But then
Hmm.
when it's just your daughter, or just and I don't mean just, but does that make sense?
Right.
Like when it's about to study, I'm studying for this test I'm about to take, and I'm feeling this, that it does not make a logical sense why I should feel this. And it's because we didn't have the understanding
Hmm.
that we were just feeling the samskara, the memory, the residue from
Yeah.
the experience that had not been processed, integrated, and embodied. And that's the beauty of the emotional processing technique that I offer, that we do here, right? Would
Right.
you say that you would, I feel like I went off on a tangent there, but would you say that that was I didn't know this story, by the way, guys. So it's like, you've never told me this other side of it. So,
Oh.
so when you said it's a feeling I had never felt before, for those guys who are listening, is it the
It,
coming home? Is it the feeling of safety, the feeling of ease in your own? life in your own body, in your own being.
It's kind of all of that. You know, it's kind of like when you stand at the edge of the ocean and the water is coming up, and it's like that little bit of just smooth, that comfort, that sound. It was just this super peaceful moment where like my body quit shaking, my brain turned off, and it was calm and it was balanced. And there wasn't any confusion. There wasn't um, any thoughts spinning around that I
Right,
should go
right.
back to and readdress. It was just like in this moment right here, I'm present and nothing is really wrong.
I'm safe.
You
Yeah.
know, I'm safe. Yeah. And that was just a huge eye opener for me. It was a
I
huge
wonder
thing.
if this is why you work with homeostasis, and this is why you work, like, that's why you do the work you do. From that, you think it's from that moment?
I mean, I think that once I really understood the nervous system and what it does to the body, I became almost infatuated with it. It's like a weird, like I'm drawn to it like a magnet. It's like it's
Right.
such an interesting topic for me because I have the capability in like 45 seconds to 2 minutes to like come back to neutral
Yeah.
in the midst of anything going on.
So
And
powerful.
you know, we learned about these feeling the emotions and going back to that medication again. I mean, I remember taking, I don't know what they had me on this time, Lexapro, Paxil, something for, depression and anxiety. But I remember coming home one day and going, I don't even care if the kids bathe, if they get food. Like it had taken away all the good emotions with the bad. And I had to like really come to consciousness with that and decide if that's where I wanted to keep staying, so that I didn't freak out. I've got to take this medicine so that I can function during the day. Like that's
Yeah.
crazy to me, looking back now, it's so crazy, but that's where I was at. And so it took away all the good stuff. And then, when we go back into childhood, and things like that, like we were hugged, we were told we were great and pretty and loved and all these things. But, I truly remember crying and being told, oh, go play. We don't want to hear that. Quit fussing, go play. And not from any one individual, from the community of people that raised us.
Well,
In the
it's just the
South, it was
norm, right?
it was a
Yeah.
Southern
It's just
thing. Like kids are running around everywhere. Somebody pulls somebody's hair, and it's like, oh, go play, go on with that.
get over that.
So there comes a point where you get into like high school and you're a teenager, and the first boy hurts your feelings, or a girl picked on you, or you're having some self-esteem stuff. um, I was weighed in high school to be on dance line every week. That was a huge thing for me. Like it started an eating disorder, like because I thought I was fat and I wasn't good enough to be on the dance line. And so there was not anybody that I could talk to about that because I didn't think they would understand. And so I was never given that space to release that emotion, to feel that. So I only knew like what, mad, sad, and happy. When you asked me about an emotion one day, that was another one. Like we were on the phone and we were just starting to process stuff. And she says, how do you feel? And I go, what's it feel? Like,
Typically, when I'll say, like, how do you feel? They'll say it feels like, and then
yeah,
take me to an example. And I'm like, no, what's the actual feeling? And it's like, well, I feel like when whatever happened, or I feel, and I'm like, hold on, let's come back. Could you give me a word? Like, could you feel in your body? And very many of my clients are like, what are you
nothing.
talking about? Because that has been turned off. I don't know if you guys can relate. You're welcome to use the Q&A, use the chat, and let us know if any of this sounds familiar or if you want to know more. But so I'll let you tell that story. But this is when we had already started working together, because I do want to ask the question before that is, I believe that we have to come to a point where the pain of staying stuck exceeds the fear of moving forward and the fear of change.
Yeah.
And so I would like to find out, what was that for you when you decided to read? Like, because
Oh,
we had
that's
been
the good
friends and we
story.
had been talking and you
Yeah.
had moved and we were still in touch, but there had to be a moment where something changed.
Yeah. So, I mean, I was running away from my problems, because if I go, 24 hours away, then it doesn't follow me, right? Like all
Right.
the stuff stays in Louisiana. And so, yeah, that was huge. Like I remember I remember before we started working together, I had reached out a couple times and I said, "What am I doing? What is going on with me?" And you were like, "Oh, and you'd give me a couple little things and a couple little grounding exercises, and I would be like, okay, and I'd come back to presence and I'd kind of get neutral and things were okay, and then like 2 days later, like something would come up again, and I remember calling you up and I said, I'm sick and tired of feeling like this. I am so sick of myself. I was in I was furious with myself because I started coming to I started getting that glimpse that the problem wasn't the family in Louisiana. The problem wasn't the job in Louisiana. The problem wasn't the house in Louisiana. The problem was all my shit in me. Like it was all me. And I remember just like looking at myself in the mirror and being like, "Oh my God." Like, "Are you
Now
serious?"
what do I do with you?
Yes, like, "What are you doing with yourself?" And I journaled that night. Like I read this recently. It was very strange to go back and see the state of mind I was in. But I was talking about my physical pain. Like now, mind you, I had been off the meds. I had already, been living a pretty holistic lifestyle. I had
Right.
quit with the drugs and the cigarettes and all that stuff. I was still drinking a little bit, but the majority of what I thought were my issues before weren't here. You know what I mean? And so I just kind of started digging into my life and like, what is this trying to show me? And I started journaling a lot, and I wrote down, I'm tired of being Superwoman. I had taken on this identity, this people pleasing and this caregiving and this mortarism that I was responsible for everybody else's stuff. And I had physical pain manifesting in my body, my low back, my shoulders, my
Oh,
neck, my
I think
allergies were,
I think I
and I
remember
was so
that being
mad. I was
the
so mad. I was
connection.
so hurt.
I think I
And
remember that being the connection. There was something, and
yeah,
I said, "What's going on here?" And then you were like, you started really, yeah. I
I just
remember you
yucked.
having that moment, and then because you would reach out and ask more and more of like, where is it physically materializing in my body? And
Right.
then when you knew I knew the answer, and you were like, how the heck do you know this?
Yeah.
And I remember that part of where the conversation started going.
Yeah.
And so that was maybe your awakening, is your brain had the proof, because that's
It,
where I use the mind body connection. When I can teach people about why it's the right foot, why it's the left shoulder, why it's in the head, why it's in the stomach, typically if I can make that connection with them, they will come into some sort of awareness, and then the defense drops and they're willing to say, okay, maybe so.
mhm. Yeah, it was like, I mean, we had read all the books, we had seen all the things, I mean, I had a 4.0 in anatomy and physiology. Like I'm no moron, right? Like I know what the structure of the body is. But there was no reason why my shoulder started hurting. I didn't
Right.
fall, I didn't have trauma, nothing happened, right? And so there was no reason why my hips weren't operating properly, why none of that
Right.
made sense to me. I was, again, one of the healthiest I had been my whole life. We had moved to Colorado. We were doing tons of exercising, tons of hiking, eating great food. Um, I loved my environment. I loved my husband. There was nothing wrong here, but everything in my body was sucking the life out of me.
Yeah.
I was exhausted. I was drinking a bottle of wine a night. Like it was
I
just,
remember that part.
oh my God, I did that for years. Like that was my little cradle, my little bottle on the porch.
What's interesting is that's what you were mad about. You had
Yes.
already come to the awareness that that's not what you wanted to do. And when you called me and you were drinking, you were mad because you were drinking. Like you were
Yes.
actually like, I don't want to keep doing this, and I don't know how not to. And
Mhm.
then that's when the work really started shifting. That part
Yeah.
I do remember. And I remember you saying, but it sucks. It's terrible. I was like, yeah, 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 it's fine. We're going to stay with it. You
No.
were like, no, no, it's
It was
really bad. Like, I don't think you understand how bad. And I was like, yeah, 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 it's fine. Like, this is supposed to be happening. Everything's going to fall apart. And you're like, but there's a rash all over my body.
oh,
And there,
yes.
like,
That was the day me and my mom had kind of got into it, and that's a great story too. I mean,
You were like
It was,
sending me pictures and I was like, it's fine. It's just everything coming to the surface. And you were like, but it itches everywhere. And
yeah,
I've
like
put every oil and
I was so irritated. I had been bathing in geranium oil because it was, for love and
emotion. Yeah.
yes, and I was so upset. My mom and I had this huge misunderstanding. She had shingles. I broke out in a rash, and it was just like, wow, this shit's real.
Yeah. I think that's when you were sold. I
And
don't think you've
and
ever looked back or questioned anything since then.
no, my husband slept on the couch for like 2 days because he was like, I can't smell the geranium. He was so freaked out. And I was just like, I need to keep rubbing it. But yeah, it was like when I started looking back, Kim, at all the things, when the gallbladder explode, how
Yeah.
angry and jealous I was that night, um when uh the ovaries freaked out and exploded and had to come out of my body, like what was going on in my life at that time, like when my tonsils were swollen, how I couldn't voice my opinion, and I really looked back at all these different things, all these different ailments, all these different things that they told me were wrong with me, and I can see the connection. I can see every single thing.
It leads us to a wild goose chase where we're always looking for what is wrong with us because our brain already feeds us that, right? You're never
Right.
worthy enough. Of course, there's something wrong with you. Of course, you're defected. Your body gets old starts falling apart as you age. That's just what
Mhm.
we have been hypnotized. Don't y'all worry about being hypnotized because we have already been hypnotized to all of this BS. And
Yep.
then we believe it, like it becomes our story. It becomes our story and we materialize it in our
Yeah.
life because we believe it. So let's just give these guys, I love the backstory, and we for sure are going to have you back on because you have so many topics that you've
Oh my
overcome to
gosh.
talk about. But I want to talk about how you're actually bringing the work into your life. What's that transformation been like for you from how it was to how it is now? What is the most significant thing that you have learned through this so simple 5-step process? Like what has been,
What has been huge for me is that I was a victim. I was a victim for years. There was always someone that did something to me that made me feel that way.
right?
Right. And that was my thing. Like, if as long as I could point the finger or justify why I was angry, then I didn't have to really face anything. And so, this has been huge for not only my relationships, like with my husband, my children, my mother, my siblings, but my clients, like everything. People aren't doing things to me. And when I finally like caught that, it was like, whoa, like everything just was like this super interesting state. And I laugh a lot now and I giggle a lot and I'm happy and I'm enjoying things. And it's like I'll sit outside and I'll just be like, oh, such a pretty day. It's very childlike. Like that part of me
Mm.
that I didn't get to have has come back, and it's just a great space to be. But really these 5 steps, man, I don't know. I can't even say enough. It's mind-blowing. It's one of these things that like once you really embody the punchline, once you
That's right.
truly embrace that and start living it on a daily basis, the possibilities are endless,
Yeah,
you know?
possibility, potentiality. It's
Y-
mind blowing. As the brain's first nature is to blame.
Yes.
It's always going to blame. And the first stage of awakening is victim awareness
Yeah.
of being the victim. Awareness of being the victim. First stage of I am waking up is I now see that I am the
Mhm.
victim. And so we beat ourselves up about being victim and martyr and whatever. But guys, we were hypnotized to be that.
Yeah.
I grew up reading the Bible. That's what raised me. And so I for sure wanted to be one of the saints, one of the martyrs, one of the, like I bought that hook, line and sinker. No one even had to tell me to be that, right? I was just a little people pleaser who wanted to please God or to,
Mhm.
whatever. And so it's very natural for us. And then you top that with Southern, right? Oh, I'll let you check the message in a second. But what I wanted to say is, it's like the house of mirrors. Once
Yeah.
you awaken to the work and you said like I suddenly saw like they're not doing this to me, it's like you saw that you were doing it to you. You were
Yes.
projecting it, reflecting it. This is what we do. We have the wounded healer, right? Where we have not been healed yet. And so we have this mechanism where we actually take our wounds, vomit them onto the world so that we can go and clean up the vomit, right? It's just like we
Yeah.
do this sick thing, but it's actually relationships, especially they are so deep.
Mhm.
They're so complicated because there's so many layers of things going on, that's between the two. And it's like a house of mirrors, like you would see at the
Yeah.
circus or whatever. It's just like kind of distorted. And then you'll have this one you kind of see, but then you don't really recognize yourself. And so it's just this constant showing your own stuff.
There was this very odd moment where I realized that, like, my husband wasn't really a bad person.
I love to say they're on my side. Let's not forget.
Like, I
Uh,
remember going, "Oh God, Monique,
it's all you.
I'm so grateful. I'm so fortunate that he's such an easy flowing human being because I might have tossed me to the streets years ago."
Right.
Yeah. And really learning about unconditional love, Kim, that was huge for me because I have these kids and they're 20 and 22 now and they're freaking amazing. I love them to death. Um, and there was so much with them growing up where, as a parent, you want to be super proud and you want to tell all the good stuff. You don't want to tell anybody the dirty things, the
The
yucky stuff,
shame. Yeah.
Yeah, because again, what will they think of me? What kind of parent am I if I allow this stuff to go on? And then there's also that part of the parent that's like, I shouldn't think that my kid's an asshole, or like I shouldn't think these bad things about whatever.
I
But
shouldn't think that parenting is hard and I don't ever want to
right,
do it again. Like
right,
we should not think that. I'm like, oh
right.
no, I for sure. It
there's
was
there's like all of
terrible.
this stigma
Yeah.
around parenting. And so I was a single mom for a little bit, not very long, and um so on and so forth. But there was this point to where I remember like just feeling all this shame and guilt for being irritated with my teenagers,
Mm.
you know, which again led to my front porch wine drinking. That was my thing, It's like, let me wash it down with a bottle of wine at night because I'm a horrible mom because I think my kids are brats sometimes. And so, like, really diving into that part of me and pulling that out and realizing that that was my own judgment and my own stuff. My kids are exactly who they're supposed to be. They get to make their own choices. They get to do things that maybe I don't agree with, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And as soon as I like let that go, it was like another whole reality came through. It was like, oh, they get to mess up and I don't get to think it's messing up.
I think it's when we come to or for me, when I came to the realization that we want our kids to do well and to evolve and we want so that we can feel proud, so that we, just like
Yes.
we want our
Yes.
clients to succeed, so that we can feel like we did a good job. We want our kids because we believe that it's about us. But you kind of hear that, right? Oh, that's so and so's kid, and
Don't
we kind
fall
of were
far from
taught
the
that.
tree.
Done for far, far, far with the tree. And so when I realized, like, actually, what we're doing is torturing our children in order for us to feel good and proud, and that we take away their experience. Well, we actually
Mm,
just take away our peace and ease, and we create the suffering. And then they feel like they have to meet the needs, and we just keep doing that over and over. But once you realize that we're all here to have an experience, we're all here to express our uniqueness, that
mhm.
we're a soul in a body suit, like we're so lucky to be able to wiggle and touch and move. We've asked to come into this body where there's all these contrast of pain is at. Like, why do all these emotions, right? It's like Skittles, all of these experiences and all of these emotions. We're like, I don't like the yellow ones and I don't like the green ones. I just want the purple and the red. It doesn't work that way, because if you put that wall up, you don't get any of it. You exactly
Yeah.
where you were. I get no feelings at all because I have to protect myself. And so I need to hate you, or I need to
Mhm.
we keep this story in our mind that says, like, hey, we need to be careful. We need to never love again because they just broke my heart, right?
Yeah.
And so we create this in our file cabinet, up here. Instead of using our brain as a processor, we use it as a file cabinet. And so we add all these stories. Don't do that. Don't do that. You can't trust him. You can't trust him. And then we have to carry all of these stories around, so we can't rationally think, and it's all to protect a feeling. And then at the end of the day, what you're feeling today is bliss and love and ease.
Mhm.
And you are actually blocking all of that. I look behind you, I'm looking at all the colors, even behind you, which is an expression, right, of
Oh,
Skittles.
I mean, how much black did I wear my whole life? Right. Like as a hairdresser for 20 something years, I mean, that's what I was programmed, dark colors and all that stuff. And
Don't be
yeah.
seen.
So the color, I mean, woo, love it. It's taken over my life. But yeah, and going back to all of that, those thoughts and those beliefs in that file cabinet stuff, I mean, how was it put there? It was programmed, Kim. Like
Yes.
someone told me, don't love too much, you're going to get your heart broken. Good boys are hard to
Mhm.
find. How often do you hear good guys are hard to find? Give me a freaking break. I found one at New Year's Eve at a bar in a rundown hunk of junk, and I've kept him ever since. He's phenomenal. So don't tell me good guys are hard to find. Like, that's BS. But all of this programming and all of these things that we were taught, these beliefs, the
Yeah.
societal shit, it's
How's
not
it supposed
real.
to
It's not
be, right?
true.
It's not.
It's
I'm actually at the point where truth is just to the perceiver. Like the truth changes.
yes.
There is no truth. There is no one truth. There is no ultimate truth. And I did a podcast on like big T and little T, just meaning the truth and truth. But
Mhm.
it's actually truth is like it's just your perception at that time. It changes.
Yes.
It's constantly changing. But that's not what we're taught in religion. That's not what we're taught in generations of generations of
Mm-mm.
generations, right? And I don't know that it's worse here or not in the South. We just know what it is, right? And I travel and I have clients globally. And I have found that there's a lot of these same beliefs in other areas. So I'm like,
Mhm.
oh, maybe it's not just a Southern thing, right? Maybe it's not just because we live in the Bible Belt. Maybe it's not
Maybe.
just because, maybe,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
maybe it's just the human condition and the way the brain works, right? That animalistic part of our brain that's in this
Mhm.
fight, flight, protect. And how many of you have not experienced some sort of trauma or crisis in childhood? And I don't mean it has to be a big major. When I say trauma, it could be your brother kicked your ice cream out of your hand. Like to
Right.
a 3 year old, that is a big deal, right? Or getting a spanking when you're a sensitive kid, or your teacher in first grade telling you that you can't do something and you like were humiliated in front of the class. When we
Mhm.
do this work, we find those parts of like their little child self, and they've been trying to live their life without bringing it back in because they didn't want to feel that pain.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what
Yeah. I
the
mean,
integration is about.
so crazy. And then, when you look at, the other programming stuff, like the expectations that we put on people and, all of this stuff, we expect them to behave a certain way when we go to a restaurant. We expect them to eat certain things and we expect them to sit down and it's like they're freaking toddlers, man. Like let them be toddlers, and so
And
this
when
is not
not to
set
get
down there.
hungry and when not to go to the bathroom. Like you need to
Yeah.
hold it. You shouldn't be
Yeah.
hungry. Let's wait until 2 or right, all of this stuff.
Yeah. So all of that programming and all of these expectations have created this foundation for us to just plug into, and we take all of this as our reality and our truth, and
That's it.
this is the way we should follow. And man, when I realized that wasn't real,
Wasn't it kind of freaky though? Like
that's a
there's a
fun
moment where it's
time.
like, well, wait a minute. If all is not true, then there's like
What
this
is
moment
truth?
of
Yes.
what
Yeah.
now? Like
Like
it's like the Jumanji bridge, right? It's just like flinging and moving, and you're like just kind of like hanging on. Like, there's nothing to hang on to. You're just kind of dangling all of a sudden until you
yeah.
start downloading or like tapping in or figuring out. There's that kind of weird. I feel like we need to talk about that because some of our clients are on this call and they are getting that. It's like when you suddenly don't have
Oh
that
man.
false perception to hold on to, it's just kind of like, well, what now? Is it
So
just conscious awareness?
yes, it's a very eerie sensation, though. It's a very odd thing, but it's just because we don't know it. We've never
Yeah.
felt it before. It's like imagine doing something really cool for the first time. Like skydiving or climbing a mountain or getting up to the top of something or standing at the edge of the water, whatever it is, like your first time, and it was just like, oh, this is really cool. This is so surreal. And like to embrace that and embody it and be like, oh, I get to come back here anytime I want. I get to play in this ground all the time. It's so fun.
Yeah.
It's like
And
such
then
a great space to be.
and then 20 seconds later, your brain's like, you're going to get in trouble. You shouldn't be doing that. For sure, you're doing something wrong. It's like, they're coming to arrest me. I can't be this easy.
Yeah. But then it's so cool because in just a few seconds, again, we can stop and we can ground back and recenter and take a couple breaths and notice. And I can get back right into my space and I don't
Mm.
have to be dealing with all the stuff. And, there's so many people that teach about change the thoughts and all these things. And while that's great, if you're not getting into what caused that thought, where did that come from? And do I truly believe it? Is it mine? You're just bypassing stuff.
Yeah,
You're just like making a
they talk
little loop
about
and come back around.
spiritual bypassing. I talk about thought bypassing. Like we
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
sure try just the positive affirmation
Yep.
and we have the memory, the scars, the emotional signature that's being constantly triggered. And so we keep the thought going, and then the thought feeds the feeling, and then you're caught in that loop and that spin.
Yes.
And so I'm not saying this is for everyone. I do believe it could be the traumatic brain. I do believe it could be people who have unresolved issues. Know
Mhm.
that memory, that scarring in the body. I don't want to get too much in this because it gets kind of deep, and
Yeah.
we're coming on time. So I want you to be able to kind of share with the audience, what do you have available? How are you helping clients? How can they
Yeah.
find you? We will put links under here. As
Okay.
soon as I learned how to do all that, I did hire someone yesterday to help me. But just kind of, what do you have? So you learned all of this. You went through the experience yourself. You've
Mhm.
received the transformation. You're nowhere near the same person that you were. Life is completely different. Your perception is different. Your identity,
Yeah.
your personal reality, which is your personality, everything has changed.
So big, so huge.
And so now you're an example of possibility and potentiality for other people. How do you help them? Where can they find you?
Yeah. So, few different things. For those that are on Facebook, I'm a member in the More Than Mindset group. I'm tagged in there. You can link from that space if you want to. My Facebook is Monique Arno Derwin. I know that's a long name, but we will post that down
You
at the
would tag
bottom,
all that.
and you can find me on Facebook that way. You can shoot me a text. You can shoot me an email. You can go to my website, moniquearnoderwin.com. Again, we'll add that link in, and set up a discovery call. The discovery call is just going to be a basic conversation that we have that's going to give me an idea of what's going on in your life and let you show me everything. And then we kind of go through the punchline and a few different little options, and I teach you how to become present. But I work with clients online, minimum 12 weeks. It's a pretty amazing program, and it takes a while to go through all the stuff. But each week you get these little glimpses, and you get to move a little bit further into that, which is really cool. And so I can link in again all of my social media, my into Instagram and my Facebook and my website. We'll put all that on the link.
I
And
like to
what else
say
do you want to know, Kim?
it's well, I'm just like would like them to know that it's an experiential process. This is not
Yes.
something that's ABC 1, 2, 3. And just kind of notice that when you're looking for that, it's actually not even your path. So what we
Right.
help do is take you inside where that you are your guru. It's inside of you.
Yes.
And just kind of, what do you help with? Like what are your clients? What kind of problems are your
So
clients
my
come with?
clients come to me normally with severe chronic pain and ailments. So restless leg, carpal tunnel, migraines. I have people with vertebral issues in the spine. I have people that have had surgeries to fix things and they aren't fixed. So all of these clients, Raynaud's, fibromyalgia, rheumatoid arthritis. I have a pretty broad spectrum of anyone that's dealing with any type of pain, mental, physical, emotional, spiritual, any kind of ailment that you've been diagnosed with, as well as like anxiety, depression, things like that. So anybody can receive this healing. It's global. You can do it anywhere, anytime. And we just meet and we go through this process. And what I do is I do take you inside and I let you bring up these things and we uncover all these beliefs, and we create your new fruit, your new future for you. That C line is huge for me. That's where I'm at with a lot of my clients right now.
Yeah. And one of the things to mention also is it's not about always feeling good. And so we don't use coaching against ourselves. It's
Right.
actually to learn how to feel,
Right.
feel everything, and be able to maintain mental stability, emotional stability, physical stability through spiritual connection and embodiment. Like
Mm.
it's all about reconnecting to the parts of us that we've we're afraid to come home. We're afraid to come inside. We're afraid to feel what we were afraid of way back in the day. It's like it stays with us. We don't know any
Yeah.
different. I think right now what's happening is the fear of feeling unsafe with the virus, the things that are going with the virus, actually has brought up childhood stuff when people were like, we're afraid from somewhere else. And so if you'll
Yes.
kind of feel into it, you'll notice that it's just those memories. And that's why so many people are stuck in fight, flight, freeze, and freak. It
Yeah.
is for sure this, it's the nervous system is so overstimulated, and
Mhm.
being able to help neutralize that. So you guys just reach out to Monique if you have any questions. The More Than Mindset Facebook group is open to everyone. There are lots of other coaches, not just Monique, that specialize in different areas. I am there. There's a podcast called More Than Mindset, and that's what we mean by it's not just about changing a thought, guys. There's so much more going on unconsciously, and we have cracked the code to be able to go in a very stable, unscary way that is just bringing you into presence with compassion and acceptance and non-judgment that the body is able to relax into, similar to when you're receiving a massage,
Yes.
craniosacral massage. It's almost like tapping into the cranial system of the universe and like bringing that into the session, like just finding that cool space. I love to dance with it. It's like this little dancing into the in and out of the shadows. People try to throw away our ego or our past or the parts of us that were hurt and just change the thought. It's not about that. It's about bringing all of those parts inside. That's what we're missing, is the connection to ourselves, the connection to the parts that you can't just throw her in a ditch. The part of you that's afraid, or the part of you that doesn't want to play along, or the part of you that's acting like a toddler. Like for sure, I have a toddler brain inside here that's always telling me what it doesn't want to listen to me, right? There's just a part of me that's rebellious, and I've just had to learn to love and embrace that part. We don't throw parts of ourselves away. We're not defected. We're actually just separated. And we've actually been separated by society. Our spirituality was given to religion, our bodies and the health of our body was given to the medical world, our mind was given to the mental, psychological world. And so we have just split ourselves apart. And this is like seamlessly coming back together so that we can feel whole and present and content and healthy. Because then our body is not going to be screaming with all of these conditions and illness and disease. Those are just the body's language. That is our body having a conversation with us. And it starts with a little knock, and then it goes to a big bang if you do not listen.
Hmm.
That is a wrap from me. But what would you like to leave these guys with? Someone is sitting there and they're just kind of at a loss, and they're like, yeah, I hear what you're saying, but that's not available for me. My life was like, da 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 da. There's
You
no hope for
know,
me. What would you tell that person?
I would tell that person, I remember thinking that.
Yeah.
I remember being that person that thought that there's no way I'll feel different. This is just who I am. This is my life. I'm just going to live with this pain. I'm just going to live with this depression. I'm just going to live with these um, addictions, all these things. And that just wasn't true. I mean, and if you're ready and you're willing to do the work, the healing is available. And it's a choice, guys. It's a choice, and you can choose to change in your own way and in your own, with the help of something like this, or you can be forced to change because life takes you out or takes you down, or doesn't give you the choice. And so I chose to change, in the clarity, in the calmness. I made the choice myself that I didn't want to feel that way anymore, and I seeked out all of the people that could help me, and you were one of them. I mean, we had done some work and I had seen it, so I would encourage you to give it a shot. Give me a call. Like, you have nothing to lose besides, what, 45 minutes of an hour of time, which we seem to have a lot of right now. So what a perfect
Yeah. Yeah.
opportunity, right? To like hook up and let's have a conversation and just see what we can bring awareness to, because that's the key. is just being aware and having the support and the structure from the community, from the More Than Mindset group. I mean, this has been so life changing. It's mind blowing still every time
Yeah.
I think about it. So
And we have multiple coaches in there, and they're all feeding and giving back, whether it's in
yeah,
relationships or financial struggles or spirituality, whatever. We have it covered. We have the whole spectrum covered in there. So you have coaches representing each area of life, because how we do anything
it's
is
how we
how
do
we do
everything.
everything. So if it is showing up in your finances, it is for sure in your relationship, it is for sure in your work. And if it's in your work, it's also with your children. Like, it's just the way we do things. There's nothing wrong with us. It's just the human condition. We've
Yeah.
come here to experience that and to possibly evolve it, right? All right, guys, I'm going to give you a moment, and I'm going to go ahead and take this off of YouTube, and we're going to keep the Zoom going. So that way, if you have any questions or if you want feedback, if you have time to hang around, we still have a few minutes, but let me get it off of, I'm going to stop the live feed. For those who are watching by YouTube, we will put the information below so you can link and find Monique. You're welcome to come to the More Than Mindset group and also to the podcast.